Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Friday. It's October the 17th. This will be our chart lesson today. Things have slowed down a little bit today. There's still a lot of volume. This is a 4,000 tick chart, and I traded it today live just to experiment with it, and I'll kind of explain to you what I did. Um, this is more of a trend day from the very get-go, and this looks very similar to what a normal trend day might look like on even the 2,000 tick chart. These little bars that keep going higher and higher and higher with lots of dojis. While it doesn't look like it, those are generally fairly strong trends, and you see there's not very many uh, big corrections. We had a big correction here, but this was more of a trading range at the time, and then we started trending higher again. And of course, I was, there's your first measure, your first leg, you measure it, and there's your measured move. So if we continue higher, that's my target, just about right back around 1900, slightly above that. I've adjusted my channel. I had a channel earlier. I had this line up a little tighter, and maybe that's it. But the more, as we went along, I couldn't make it fit right until I moved it down. And so I'm thinking that's probably more realistic right there. We'll have to see how it all plays out. But it's a little early today that I'm doing this too. But I'm done. And so I just wanted to go ahead and get my day done. I'm going to do the chart lesson and show you what I saw. There's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 really good trades, and there's probably some other trades in there if you want to be a little more aggressive that I don't have marked. There's actually an aggressive long right here. I'll mark this one. I'm going to go ahead and mark, but I'm going to mark this one in green. Um, it's a little more aggressive, especially on this bigger chart. It's probably a little more risky. But really, if you're not paying attention, you almost forget that this is a 4,000 tick chart. And that's what I'm always telling people. If you take the heading off the chart and just put some charts out, you can't tell one from the next. And the price action works exactly the same no matter, what chart you're looking at. So just keep that in mind and understand that, it works the same. The only difference is I had to use a different stop and target technique. And what I was doing was I was keeping my stop below the signal bar, and I'll point them all out. This is your signal bar on this one. This really set the trade up, but this is the real where your stop has to go, below that lowest swing low. This was it on this one, this bar on this one right here, this little doji, this doji, this doji here, and then of course you got matching lows here on this one. So your stop had to go below those. Um, so that's where I was putting my stops, and what I was doing was trying to get, and most of them they were 3 or 4 points. Uh, there might have been one of them that was like 4 1/4 points or something. I don't remember which one it was, but one of them was a little bit larger, if I remember correctly. And what I would do is put my stop below the signal bar where it belonged, and I would try to get 3 points. And I was able to get 3 points on most all of these trades, with the exception of a couple of them, and they still would have worked, but I didn't want to risk it backing up. So as soon as it looked like you were finding resistance, I would exit. And this last trade I know was one of them. As soon as that doji formed and I couldn't get my 3 points, I exited. And I think the other one was right here. I couldn't get my 3 points, and it started looking like it was going to back up, and I exited, thinking that, hey, if I get a second entry long, I'll just re-enter. And of course, you get that right there, and you get a quick, easy 3 points out of it. So that's the way I was trading this today. That was my strategy. Um, it's really slowed down enough that you probably could go back to the 2,000 tick chart, and you might have wanted to reduce your leverage some too. If you usually trade, a couple of contracts, you might only want to drop to one, or if you trade 10, you might only want to trade 5 or whatever. So, um, but it was a good trend, so it worked out really well today. It was not very difficult to read this on this chart. I mean, you can see it's constantly going higher. There were really good setups. The little short-term trend really gave you the time to enter on both of them. The only two big corrections. If you used your range rules here, everything worked fine. So it was really on this standard chart. I mean, if I wasn't paying attention, I almost forget, when I'd enter my order and suddenly my stop would be in a weird place. Now it's, oh yeah, I got to move my stop and I want to move my target too. And so you had to, you either need to change your strategy or you better move pretty quickly because some of these might hit your target. If they take off real fast, it might hit your 4 tick target even before you were able to move it. So, and generally you want to move your stop first. You don't want to get stopped out. So you want to move your stop first to get it in the right place. So, it probably pays if you're going to continue to trade this one for a little while. It probably pays to create a new strategy based on the 4,000 tick chart, auto strategy, and that way everything, maybe you started at 4 points and you tighten it to wherever it needs to be, and you have your target at 3 points, and that way you don't have to worry about some quick movement because it does move up and down pretty quickly. It really didn't slow down, I would say, until right in here the bars started getting smaller. Most of these bars were forming. They're smaller, but they were forming very quickly. And I want to say, from about here up, that's when it started to slow down. And you can see it's moving fairly slow now. You may have to go back to a 2,000 tick chart now to trade it, and I don't have anything but that first trend line right there. And we do have a break of that one. We really had a break here, but you could adjust this one slightly. So this may be your break and a couple legs up. So we may be done for the day. Looking at it on that chart, it kind of looks that way. Going back to the 4,000, maybe not. So we'll just have to kind of see. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't make another push up and test that high again now, but we'll see. It's definitely waning, but it's Friday too, and it's been a really crazy week. So I'm guessing a lot of people are probably done, just like me. They're trying to wrap up their week and get the heck out of here. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to talk about the trades. I set that up for you. Understand what we're looking at. Again, this is a 4,000 tick chart, so if you're still on the 2,000, it's not going to look quite like mine. Again, if we get a measured leg, I'm looking for prices to end up here just above 1,900, and it looks like we're trying to go higher again. We have gotten below the EMA, but that's the first, other than back here during this trading range, that's the first time we've had any closes below the EMA since the regular open, other than this one. But this was a trading range, and so it's not that uncommon to see it there. So generally it takes a move or two below before it reverses, but that doesn't mean that we can't just continue to trade down here from now. So don't get confused by what I'm saying. Just understand that generally, when you've had a rather strong trend up, that it's going to take a trip or two below the EMA before it finally reverses, completely. That's just the bias. Doesn't mean that it can't happen. You see, we're trying to rally here, but prices are still below that EMA. So until we close back above it and give you some kind of setup, be real careful. There was a second entry long there, and I wouldn't have been afraid to take that long at all. In fact, I'll go ahead and mark that one. Because there's plenty of room, even though it doesn't look like much room there, there's plenty of room to get, a point or two out of that. So, and you see we're just rocketing on up now. So my guess is we'll see what happens. There's still probably, I would have started with a shorter term one about like that, and you got a break and a new low, but don't discount that there might not be one right here as well, maybe a bigger one. So just stay leery of that. Actually, it looks like it fits right there better. So I'm thinking that's probably it. So we've probably had our break and new low there. So yeah, that game gives you a little more credence to want to take that trade right there. But we'll see if we could have Would we have gotten 3 points out of this one yet? The entry would have been 1885.50. That's using a stop, and I would probably even recommend using most of these you can get today. You've been able to get filled on limit orders. I got filled better than a stop on just about every one of mine. 1885.50, and so far we've been to 87. So 2 points for sure already. And that might have been a good target with that being below the EMA because you know you're probably going to get some resistance there. And you can see it is finding a little resistance. So, but what I would do was just hang on until I got a reversal type bar and then exit. And usually it'll look, you can see where it started to look like a little doji here. Well, I almost exited this one right here, but I held on. And there were a couple of them that I had to exit, or actually, no, this was the one I did have to exit here because it might have, surely it would have gotten 3 points right there. So yeah, I must have exited on that doji. 89.50. Still only got 2 points. So anyway, you get the gist of what I'm trying to get across there. If it didn't take on off like some of these did and get a quick, easy 3 points, I would consider exiting and taking a couple of points. I wouldn't let it back up too much, in other words. And that's just what I did today as I was experimenting. I'm not even sure I would continue to do it that way, but that's what I did today. So, because this is more of an experiment than anything, because I literally in all the years I've never traded anything but a 2,000 tick chart. So I was just as uncomfortable as anybody else might have been on this 4,000 tick chart. But they did smooth things out extremely well yesterday and make things a little clearer. And I'm going to show you. You can see all the same setups on this chart again today. You just have to understand that your stops and your targets are going to be a little bit different. So, but let's back out where we can see it a little better and go through each trade, and then we'll go from there. But this was the first trade I saw when I came in. We were in this little trading range across here. I ended up moving it up. Early on, I had it right here. I only liked going long because we traded up into this, so the bias was up. We had a little tick lower right here, and notice notice the new high, pull back first entry, pull. So it's a second entry long. It's, another test of this area across here where prices haven't been able to close. And so there's multiple reasons to be thinking long right there. I was hoping maybe it'd take on off and there was some kind of trend line working right up through here. And there could have been. I mean, there is a short term, there's no could have been to it. There is a short term trend that's kind of working. You could call it right across there or right across there. And you get your break, new high, and then this is your bigger correction. So, and that's why there's probably a bigger correction right there. So people were looking at that and seeing it that way. So, but anyway, second entry long, and then it pulls back, and then it's obvious it's a range. Now, it was pretty obvious here, but when it turned back down right there again, and so then you get a little bitty bar, and you hadn't had many of these little small bars with a chance to enter. It is a second entry long. It's not a beautiful bar, but this is a range, and the odds are you're going back up here. So I like this one. Notice the new high, pull back first entry, pull back second entry, and several of these. And notice it went below first and then went out the top. It ticked below one tick, I think, right there, and then went out the top of this bar right here. So I just had my stop there, and that was the quick, easy. Boom, put your 3 points in your pocket, and then guess what? It turns right back down. And there is a second entry long right here too. So again, you pull back first entry, you're pulling back, you get your close outside your line right here, a move to a new low, a failed break below here, and it goes out the low side first and then goes out the top. You could just use a stop there if you wanted, or you could say, hey, I'm gonna see if it'll pull back, break higher and pull back, but you might miss a trade like that because generally those traps take off pretty quickly. This one didn't, and if you entered that, taking that aggressive trade, you might have exited when it couldn't go higher here. And I believe there's really a little break higher right there. So there's like a little second entry long. but you haven't ticked back yet, and we talked about that yesterday. On a real strong trend, you'd probably consider that second entry and go with it, but this is more of a range, and you got some doji stacking up. So I want to see that tick back first, and that didn't come till here, and then it went higher. So your second entry was really not till right here, and notice it ticked back and then turned and went right out the top. Great setup. Just go long right there, or try to use a limit order. It's been kind of slow, but usually when you get that trap, it's going to take on off, and off it goes. And where does it start to find resistance? Right at the same place that it found resistance before, right across those highs right there. And as soon as you get those closes, you probably want to, and it still, look how it gets all those touches across there. And actually, I think it probably even looks better right across there. Gets the most touches and still uses the last closes, and then it breaks through. Actually, we didn't talk about this one. This is a little two-legged correction, but again, notice how it breaks lower and goes. It didn't go out the top of this one, but that's a nice bullish reversal bar. There's two legs down there, and this is a trap. Notice the pullback first entry, pullback second entry short, and so this is going to change the rules a little bit of what's considered a failed second entry short. But the bottom line is, even if it got enough, let's say we say the rule on a 4,000 tick is three points. Even if it gets the 3 points and reverses, it's still a reversal of the market that had people thinking short, and it didn't go back to where it was expected, which would be down here at the lows. So you want to take that to the long side. And so that's a nice trap right there. It's a nice bullish reversal bar. You have people obviously trying to pick tops and get short. So it's a good place to go long. There's not a lot of room between there and here. There's more than a point, but we're trading a 4,000 tick, so that's something to think about. But with a trap, I figure you're going to get through there. Even if you didn't, you could have exited here and got something out of it. But just hold on until at least ticks back below one of these other bars or something, and it rushes on up, and you're able to get 3 points, and then it backs up again, and it's still like a little two-legged correction too. There's a little move down, pull back, a move down, and this is a lot bigger chart, so that takes more precedence. I mean, if you go over to the, let's see what time that was. Let's just see what it looks like on the other chart since we have it there. That triggered at 9:11, so let's go to the other chart. Find 9:11. I'm sure it's probably going to be right there. It actually, notice that you can see the two legs and a little two-legged correction in the middle, and you can see the two legs down, and it triggered a little earlier on this one, maybe 9:04, 9:05 or something. 9:11 didn't get you in till, actually 9:11 gets you in here, so there it is. It's right here. I'm sorry. And there's a clear first entry. Same thing. It almost looks like this. Just kind of, that's really a repeat pattern of this one, just a smaller version. Pull back, there's a little first entry, a pullback second entry, and then it kind of breaks lower and then gives you another entry. And that's the same thing that kind of happens here, but there's two legs down and there's a two-legged correction in the middle. It's just a little repeat pattern there. But you can see it looks a little different here, and you can see what I'm talking about. You don't see all those breaks on that little move there, but they're there on the other chart. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. So, or actually it's right here, yeah. So, and the nice thing about this is a little small doji. It almost closed on its high, so you can get in with low risk, and you get a low entry, and it's easy to get your 3 points out of that one with much smaller risk. And it's a breakout pullback long. It's in an uptrend. Just lots of reasons to be thinking we're going higher. To be honest, there's another aggressive long here that was probably worth taking. I didn't circle it. if we would have ticked lower right there and then it went higher, I would have really liked it, but it didn't. So, I didn't mark that one, but you could have actually considered that one too. It's easier to say that now, but when you saw that doji and this one is very bullish, but it is inside still. It didn't break below or above. So, but the bias is up and you're looking for things to go further. There's not much room between there and there. There's a point, but on this is a 4,000 tick chart, so it's a little different. So you're better to wait and just see if you get a better entry. And you got this trend line working down. You get a breakout and some closes and a move to a new low, and then it takes off again. And notice this. There's not a line here. Let's just move this up. But notice that double bottom there and those matching lows. And it's that little break. Actually, if you get all the way to the low, it's right there. But that's where most of it's right there. So these had some little stems, but they're not really going below this last point down here. So you want one that breaks below them. And there it is. And it closes and almost closes out on the very high, and then it makes a little high or low right there. It didn't break above yet, so when it does, it's probably going to kind of jump real fast, and it did, and then it backs up. So you probably wouldn't have gotten. This might have been one where you exited early, so you only get a point or so out of it. And that's the smart thing to do. And just wait and see if it'll back up and give you a second entry long. And again, it does. And again, it's got all those matching highs. So there's probably some stops building up there. And you can see how it jumped up and it pulls back again and then it takes off. And this one you get your 3 easy points or more out of it. So, but you need to figure out a rule and kind of stick to it. And then once again, there's a failed second entry short there, so you might have considered going long right there. I didn't like it because those are all side by side. They're all dojis, and at the time I had this trend line a little higher, and I wasn't sure if we didn't have a break and a new high yet. So I adjusted it here and played with it a little more. And so I didn't like going long right there. You could have and would have got a point. And even if you would have held on, it wouldn't have got your stop. So, but you get a better chance to enter right here, and it is off of a possible trend line. Even if you started a new trend here, there's a trend line right there, and that kind of confirmed it. Look how bullish that is. It's right at the high, so the best thing to do, of course, you might miss it by doing this, but the best thing to do here is let it tick higher and then drop you a limit order back here somewhere. And it came back enough to feel you way back here, and then it actually ticks back again and goes out. And you could have really done the same thing right there. I think it gets a little more aggressive because you've got these new highs starting to form, and you're really struggling to go higher here. So you can see the momentum's waning. So I'll circle that one in green because there's some aggressive traders that are probably going to want that one. And it is a failed second entry short, so that's another reason. But it's just so close to that high when the last one didn't hardly go higher. Because usually when you break a new high, if there's momentum, like here, see how it rockets on past before it pulls back? And look at those matching highs. Of course, this is even worse because it's a high of the day. But notice how you're starting to not go very far past those highs. Look at this one, how it went rocketing on past before it pulls back. And then look at that double top. It rockets on past and then pulls back. Same thing here. That's what you want to see. And when you start to see new highs and you just barely going a couple of ticks before it backs up, you're starting to get some resistance. Or if you're seeing that at the bottom, you're starting to get some support. So it gets a little more risky. And then you make the new high, then you break here, and you don't really this is a first entry. There's no decent setup. Comes down. There's that second entry. I think that one was probably worth taking. You might want to use a limit order, but even if you use a stop, it worked. And you're going higher. And notice we still haven't closed. We're still not finding support back off the EMA yet. We went through there and closed above it, but it shot right back below again, and we're still closing below. So that's not a good sign for going long yet. I don't think I would take a second entry long there. I think I would just sit tight for now and see what happens. See if you can't get a short trap or a long trap before you go. And you almost could have considered this a long trap, and that's a big bearish reversal bar. So you might have even thought about a short right there. But the overall trend has been up, so I really don't think it'd be wise to go short yet, especially since you have what looks like a channel here that's at a break and a new low, because that's what happens. They trick you into going short and they end up trapping you and it goes the other way. Hadn't done that yet, but it looks like it's trying to do that. So, um, that's why I'm always saying don't counter trend trade, because what they'll do is make it look real good to the short side and trap you, and then it's off going with the trend again. And it looks like that's what's going to happen, because that looks like a pretty good setup there for a trap. Big bearish bar, and it went enough to probably get you a scalp out of it for 4 ticks. But do you want to risk a stop way up here to get 4 ticks out of this trade? If you do, then that's great, but I don't think that's a very good risk to reward, and I think you'll get yourself in trouble eventually doing that. So, because if you're only getting a point and there's 3 or 4 points in here, then one loser is going to eat up 3 or 4 winners, and you won't survive like that, because even with a 90% win rate, when you're losing 3 or 4 to 1, you're not going to survive. So just understand that. But that's pretty much it for today. Been a good week. Been a crazy week. It's been a little frantic. Is the way I would describe it. For me, even I felt a little intimidation with this market. So I'm sure lots of you felt it too. And if you're really inexperienced with price action, you probably felt more than just franticness, and that's the best description I can come up with off the cuff. I don't want to say scary, because it is a little scary, but that's not the best description. Just different, and a different feel, and nervousness. I could feel the nervousness because it's moving so quick, and especially on the 2,000 tick chart, because of the way it jumps up and down, and it makes you question, are you doing the right thing? Even though I've said it many times this week, make sure you stay with the prevailing trend and don't get whipsawed to the trying to enter counter trend, because that's what they're doing and making it pretty hard. So, but anyway, I'm going to wrap this thing up and start my weekend. Hope you have a great weekend. We'll be back to do it Monday. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.